The views and opinions expressed on America's Workforce Union podcast and its digital media channels are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the producers or sponsors.
Welcome to the America's Workforce Radio Podcast, the flagship production of the American Workers Radio and Podcast Network, where organized labor and its never-ending fight to protect the rights of the American worker come first. Now, presented by LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. Here's your host, Ed Flash Ferens.
More than 20 unions now challenging the Department of Defense for terminating all collective bargaining agreements. Meanwhile, hospitals and nursing homes fearing staff cuts due to a recent Supreme Court ruling. And today on the show, the Communication Workers of America and the president of the Ohio AFL-CIO. Welcome to the Wednesday, July 15th edition of America's Workforce, where we're available on at least 5 platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. We have 2 guests joining us on the show today. We're going to kick things off with Frank Matthews. Frank is the Administrative Director for District 4 of the Communication Workers of America. I got some good news here. This is all posted on the national website, cwa-union.org, where DirecTV workers represented by the CWA have ratified an agreement for a new contract. We're talking a 4-year contract covering over 300 customer service call workers in West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, Minnesota, and Colorado. Frank will talk about that. He's also going to get into some training that's going on with CWA members. It's called Fighting Oligarchy. I like that. Fighting Oligarchy. You know what's been going on in America here under the current administration, and union brothers and sisters are preparing for what could be a very interesting election in November. Our second guest on the show today is Tim Burga. Tim is president of the Ohio AFL-CIO. Their website is ohioaflcio.org. And Tim was at the AFL-CIO convention in June, where it was announced that their goal, the Labor Federation's goal nationally, is to organize 2 million new members over the next 5 years. Well, it's happening in the state of Ohio. He's going to speak to that. We're talking about organizing drives at Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, library drives that Melissa Cropper has talked about on the show. There's also organizing wins at Jeni's Ice Cream. Gotta love that. Gotta love that. Also, the News Guild has been very successful at the Columbus Dispatch. Also, workers at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History organizing right now. So Tim Burga will be our second guest on behalf of the Ohio AFL-CIO right here on America's Workforce. Now, brief look into the world of labor. This segment brought to you by Boyd Watterson Asset Management. You can find more at boydwatterson.com. More than 20 union affiliates of the American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, and the National Federation of Federal Employees have filed a lawsuit against the Department of Defense challenging Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's April 9th memo directing all DoD agencies to terminate virtually all collective bargaining agreements. The unions argue the move violated the Administrative Procedure Act by reversing a 50-plus year DoD policy of honoring its CBAs without any reasoned explanation, failing to consider workers' reliance interests and misinterpreting the executive order it purported to implement. Now, this suit covers tens of thousands of civilian DoD employees, some of whom have been covered by CBAs for more than 50 years. Got a comment here from Randy Irwin. Now, Randy is president of the National Federation of Federal Employees. This is what he said. The Trump administration unilaterally and illegally stripping collective bargaining rights from DoD workers only serves to weaken morale, harm recruitment and retention, and reduce accountability, jeopardizing our national security and the critical mission of the agency. Meanwhile, former EEOC Commissioner Jocelyn Samuels dismissed her lawsuit challenging her firing by President Trump, citing the Supreme Court's recent decision in Trump versus Slaughter, which overturned nearly a century of precedent and held that the president has authority to remove members of independent agencies at will. This is what she said in a statement. The court's opinion leaves me without a viable path forward to continue contesting my termination. Trump fired Samuels in January of 2025, eliminating the Democratic majority that she would have preserved at the EEOC. And the U.S. government has pushed out the expiration date for more than 350,000 Haitians covered by temporary protective status. That was supposed to be on July 10th. It's now moved to the 24th of this month. Former Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem determined, this was in November of last year, that Haiti no longer met the conditions for designation for temporary protective status. Now, that designation was originally slated to terminate on February 6th of this year, but the Secretary's TPS termination decision was stayed by the District Court for the District of Columbia. Following the Supreme Court's decision in Mullen versus Doe, the Trump administration may proceed with the termination of the program. Now, the end of employment authorizations for hundreds of thousands of Haitians is threatening to leave nursing homes, hospitals, and home care agencies short-staffed, as roughly 21,000 Haitian TPS holders actually work as nursing assistants and caregivers. Caregiving providers are already facing staffing shortages. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Frank Matthews on behalf of the Communication Workers of America.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
It takes LIUNA to power North America with affordable energy. The men and women of LIUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, have the skills needed to build and maintain oil, natural gas, nuclear, solar, and wind projects that are shaping America's energy future. From new energy tech to retrofitted facilities, LIUNA members do it all. Find out what it takes to be powered by LIUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce is presented by the Laborers International Union of North America. Feel the power right now at liuna.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the United Steelworkers. You can find more at usw.org. Blue Cross and Blue Shield companies formed out of a need to provide affordable health care to teachers, to loggers, and miners. Back in 1965, the Blues developed the National Labor Office to strengthen its commitment to organized labor. Blue Cross Blue Shield's National Labor Office remains focused on America's workers, advocating for affordable and equitable health care, partnering with strategic alliances to provide industry-leading products and services, and proudly serving more than 18 million unionized workers, retirees, and their families, all working hard for America's working families, for the health of America. You can learn more by following them at Blue Labor on LinkedIn and X, formerly known as Twitter. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Communication Workers of America. You can find more at cwa-union.org. This segment of the show is brought to you by the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. For more information, please visit bmwe.org. The Iron Workers Great Lakes District Council, consisting of 8 iron worker local unions in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. We build the skylines and bridges along the Great Lakes. With more work than ever before, the Great Lakes District Council is actively searching out the next great iron worker, whether it's building the next Intel plant or constructing a bridge to safely connect our great cities along the lake. So join the Iron Workers Great Lakes District Council today. Find out how and learn more about the council by visiting iwdistrictcouncil.com.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook or follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That would be AWF Union Podcast, AWF Union Podcast. Let's go to our live line and welcome our featured guest. Every month we check in with Frank Matthews. Frank is the Administrative Director for District 4 of the Communication Workers of America national website, CWA-union.org. And that district encompasses 5 Midwestern states. We're talking Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And this is news that is very important to those of you in Ohio that work at DirecTV. DirecTV workers, represented by the CWA, have ratified an agreement for a new contract. We're talking 300 customer service call center workers, not just in Ohio, but West Virginia, Kentucky, Minnesota, and Colorado. Frank, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining us. Maybe you can run down the deal that was accomplished here because of the power of the CWA. Go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, we back in early June, in April, the workers actually voted to authorize the strike if necessary. So overwhelmingly authorized. So that was the real power going into bargaining to reach a fair contract. These workers wanted a fair deal, were willing to stand up for it, and they're at the end of June ratified a 4-year deal, over 13.4% compounded wage increase through the life of the contract. But probably the most important thing is they maintained and guaranteed they kept their quality, affordable health care, preserving a lot of things like prescription drug coverage, that kind of thing. So it just goes to prove that, solidarity works. We are not out of an era where you have to fight for everything. And I'm really happy. As you said, 300 workers in West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, Minnesota, and Colorado are going to have a far better quality of life and be working for a living wage, all because of labor.
Frank, let me ask you this. Earlier this week, we did a show with National Nurses United on the proposal of having Medicare for all. It's been talked about in Congress, hasn't gone anywhere. Are you finding, as a union leader, that in these negotiations, that seems to be, wages, of course, are important. You got to have good wages, but you have to have good health care as well. Are you seeing this as becoming more and more difficult to accomplish at the bargaining table?
Oh, absolutely. The insurance companies are running rampant, and it certainly doesn't help with programs like the ACA being basically decimated by the big ugly bill. And when you go to the table, the biggest question that we ask ourselves at the end of before we do a tentative agreement or before we ratify a contract is, are our members better, or will our members be better at the end of this contract than they are right now? And when you go adding up the increases in healthcare, although, many times you can't, you can make some of that up, you can't make up healthcare and wage increases. And, that's been the problem is there are times over the last few decades where workers have kind of had the feeling that, okay, well, if I just maintain my health care and I don't take a raise, I'll be ahead of the game. No, because what you find is 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you are so far behind the 8 ball on wages and what you can afford and just your buying capability that regardless of your healthcare situation, you get put behind the 8 ball. So I think what we find is that there has to be a comfortable balance of both in order for families to succeed and families to be able to make it and be thinking that far down the road. And to your point, the healthcare is absolutely one of the biggest detriments to coming up with a fair balance in that contract negotiation.
Well, Frank, obviously the Medicare for All bill is not going to get any traction in this Congress. They're looking ahead beyond 2028. But let's talk about politics, if you will, because I understand that the CWA is doing what's called fighting oligarchy training. And this is kind of interesting. You mentioned the big, beautiful bill. And what we have seen here in the past year and a half, well, it's been going on for decades, the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, healthcare disappearing, but tax breaks for the rich, well, they're moving forward. Talk to me about this training that's going on, Frank.
Basically, last year, we came up with this course nationwide called Fighting Oligarchy. And it's a new political education training that focuses really on the current political crisis in this country, in which, millionaire and billionaires have taken hold of our politics in DC. This is a 1-day course, and it really explores how working class movements here at home and abroad have taken on these oligarchs in the past and won. It's really good at providing the participants of the training the skills to go back to their workplace and engage with their fellow members towards political action. And uh, we've got a big year here in Ohio. We're preparing for a big fight on behalf of CWA endorsed Sherrod Brown, and CWA endorsed Amy Acton for Ohio governor. So it basically gives these folks the tools to go back into that workplace and have those one-on-one conversations with their fellow members. And, that's really a strong platform of labor unions is we try to do a really good job of educating our members, not on just the what's, but the whys. And we are having trainings all across the country in every state. But here in District 4, we've already completed our first training in Columbus, Ohio on June 25th. Had about 15 activists go through that day-long training. We've got a training coming up this week in Milwaukee. And then we're also, between now and September, going to be doing a class in Indianapolis, Chicago, Detroit, and wrapping up in September. I believe it's September 3rd in Cleveland. But these are a day-long training. The members will come in. We take care of everything. We have breakfast for them, start the training, provide lunch so they can work through it. And they just really, really cover a lot in that 8-hour day. But we think it'll pay great dividends when they go back to the workforce.
Frank, let me ask you this, and I've noticed this through a number of unions that I monitor here on a daily basis. I'm seeing more and more organizing going on. It seems because of what's happening in Washington, the attacks on, well, especially on federal unions and collective bargaining agreements, that unions are saying, hey, wait a minute, we can't let this continue. How do you respond to that on behalf of the CWA, Frank?
Spot on. Since COVID, really, our organizing has jumped tenfold. We had employees out there and folks, just general population that could physically see how much better you did through COVID if you belong to a union. And it subsequently has just, as we find out this environment where the billionaires and the CEOs and those have taken over our political system, folks are recognizing that it's better, to steal Tim Burga's line. And I know Tim's on the show a lot. The AFL has a really good campaign now on how much better it is in a union. It truly is better in a union, and people are recognizing that in this environment where you have those billionaires and CEOs trying to run the show and take over and attacking worker rights and attacking workers, that you need that protection at the workplace. You need that brother and sisterhood of a labor union. And, there's no better example than the gaming industry, where we are seeing here at CWA just, unbelievable organizing, around the gaming industry, unbelievable organizing around different factories around the country. So you're spot on with your assessment there. I think when things get bad, people are going to look to see who has the umbrella. And, and certainly that in my belief, that's labor. And I think most people's belief that, there's power and unity and having a voice at the workplace and controlling your fate a little bit, not just depending on some billionaire or some CEO to wake up tomorrow and decide whether you have a job or not, or whether you get a raise or not. It's pretty powerful stuff, and we're pretty proud of it, and people are starting to see it. And to your point, I think all labor unions are seeing kind of a rebirth when it comes to organizing, and that's a great thing.
Speaking of Tim, he's going to be our next guest on the show. Tim was in Minneapolis in June at the AFL-CIO Constitutional Convention, and it was announced at that convention, and this is right from Liz Schuler's mouth, that they want to organize 2 million more workers in the next 5 years. That's the floor. That's the minimum, okay? So they want more than that. So we'll see what happens. So I'm going to leave it on that note. Frank, I thank you again for the sponsorship here on America's Workforce. Frank Matthews, District Director for District 4. And that encompasses 4 states in the Midwest: Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan. CWA-union.org for complete updates. You take care. Stay safe. We'll talk to you next month. Okay, brother?
Thanks, my brother.
All right, a quick break. Tim Burga on behalf of the Ohio AFL-CIO coming up next. Once again, you're listening to America's Workforce.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
It takes LIUNA to build North America's infrastructure. From roads and bridges to schools and skyscrapers, the men and women of LIUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, build the projects we depend on. From constructing the Freedom Tower on the site of the former World Trade Center to untangling Washington, D.C.'s congested interstate, LIUNA members do the work that matters. Find out what it takes to be built by LIUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. You can find more at ifpte.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Ironworkers. You can find more at ironworkers.org.
There is unity and strength for workers.
We are the USW.
We are the USW.
The United Steelworkers.
The largest industrial union in North America.
We represent 850,000 members in the U.S., Canada, and the Caribbean.
We work in metals,
rubber,
chemicals,
paper,
oil refining,
atomic energy, and the service sector.
We are steelworkers, standing strong and fighting for what's right.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Heat and Frost Insulators Labor Management Cooperative Trust. Find out more at insulators.org/LMCT.
Unions are organizing all across America. New units are being formed and existing units are getting stronger. It's never been a more important or a more challenging job. Broadstripes is here to help you do it. Broadstripes is an all-in-one communication and organizing tool. Unions of all sizes rely on us, from nationals like LIUNA and Unite Here to locals throughout the U.S. and Canada. With Broadstripes, you can text and email your members, create digital membership cards, identify leaders, and build the power you need to win. Check us out at broadstripes.com.
America's Workforce is sponsored in part by Boyd Watterson Asset Management, LLC.
Find out more about our investment solutions tailored to meet the needs of Taft-Hartley funds at boydwatterson.com.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, where you can find more at teamster.org.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And don't forget, you can check us out on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. And when you get an opportunity, here's what you do. Just sign up and receive our shows on a regular basis and give us a rating. We always appreciate those 5-star ratings, so please keep them coming. We also appreciate Tim Burga joining us here on America's Workforce on behalf of the Ohio AFL-CIO, where he served as president for, well, my gosh, well over a decade. Long time. Very busy guy. And last month, he had the opportunity to go to Minneapolis for the AFL-CIO convention. Tim, I'm hearing all kind of good things about what happened in Minneapolis, and Liz Schuler came out of the gate saying, you know what, we got to organize. We got to organize at least 2 million more workers in the next 5 years. Let's start right there. A lot of energy. You're in it from the beginning to the end. Talk to me about it, brother. Go ahead.
It was a great convention. President Schuler and Secretary Treasurer Fred Redmond were reelected for another term enthusiastically. And we opened the convention with talking about not only reaching our goal that we set at the convention in 2023 of 1 million new union members. We surpassed that and set a new goal by passing a resolution to organize 2 million more union members by 2032. So union members are the way to raise the bar in our communities for all sorts of things: wages, workplace safety, scheduling, healthcare benefits, retirement security. So the unions set the bar in our communities across the country, and workers are flocking to join unions. And here in Ohio, we're seeing that as well.
Well, why don't you run down what exactly is going on in the state of Ohio? We've touched on these with Melissa Cropper, who serves as the Secretary Treasurer, but maybe you can give us a glimpse on what's happening in this state. And I know it's happening all across America right now, but obviously you cover Ohio. So tell me about it.
Yeah, well, across the country, you're seeing in healthcare, hospitality, construction, education, arts and entertainment, manufacturing. Again, workers are reaching out so they can have a collective voice at the workplace. Here in Ohio, we're seeing all sorts of organizing, both in the public and private sector. Construction organizing is taking off, even though we still have a problem in the country and in this state with the misclassification of workers. The construction industry, the building construction trades is booming with new members. And we're seeing, again, coffee shops, hospitals, truck drivers, news organizations, you name it, across the board, libraries, colleges, organizing is happening. And I believe that we're going to not only reach our goal of 2 million new union members by 2032, but surpass it.
One of the wins here, I love this. You know, it's summertime. In fact, this is a National Ice Cream Month. I love my ice cream. Jeni's Ice Cream. What happened there, Tim?
Yeah, Jeni's Ice Cream. Workers, again, reached out to form and join a union and got it across the finish line. Again, just one example of across the board: hospitality, healthcare, education, construction, public sector, private sector. Workers simply want to have a collective voice at work, to have a say over their wages and their scheduling and their benefits. And it's a really good time to be in the labor movement. And we still have an issue in this country with our getting a first contract, okay? So I know we've been trying to pass legislation in Congress for years that would allow for a first contract to happen quickly after unions, workers decide to join a union. So we're still having problems getting that first contract in so many places, but they're pointing up, trends are good, and workers are realizing that unions are a way to have some strength and some power and some say collectively.
Now, let's talk about higher education here. You and I talked about Senate Bill 1, which attacked higher education. As a result of that, I think some students are leaving the state of Ohio. I'm not exactly clear on the numbers on that, but I'm reading here that Ohio University established United Academics of Ohio University, and that probably could not be easy to accomplish in the environment of Senate Bill 1. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, no, you're reading it correctly. It takes courage. It takes guts. It takes workers. The old adage, Flash, that the best organizer is a bad employer. So sometimes you'll get a bad employer or a bad boss or bad management, and workers then, have the nerve and the courage and the support locally in the community to form and join a union. So we're seeing that across the board, quite frankly, and it's very exciting what's happening down at Ohio University with United Academics of OU, and again, we're seeing it at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History there in your backyard. Again, arts, entertainment, museums, healthcare, construction, public service, across the board. Now, we still need to do a lot of work, as you know, on our fair trade and stop the hemorrhaging of jobs in the manufacturing sector and our industrial sector leaving the country. We can organize the work, but we've got to have the work to organize. So there's a lot of work yet to do, but again, the trend is moving upwards for working people who are banding together to say, we want to have a say on how things go at the workplace.
That's right. That's what we want. All right. We're in the middle of summer here. I can only assume that the legislature, and this is probably a good thing, they're in recess right now. What do you see when they get back together? And I don't even know when they get back together. Are they off until election time? What is the story on that?
Well, 2-year legislative sessions here in the state of Ohio. They're on summer recess right now. There are some committees and some engagement and activity, but by and large, there will be very little legislation moving between now and election day. And then, what we typically see in the second year of a session during lame duck, that's that period between election day and the first of the year, a mad dash to try to pass legislation, often haphazardly and recklessly, which leads to a bunch of problems and lawsuits and things. So you can never predict what will happen in a lame duck session, and I suspect the outcome of the governor's race and the statewide elections and the state legislative will have to do with the pace and the type of legislation that may move in lame duck.
Tim Burga, president of the Ohio AFL-CIO, right here on America's Workforce, ohioaflcio.org. All right, let's keep that organizing going. We'll talk to you next month. Okay, brother?
Thanks for having me.
And that'll be it for yet another edition of America's Workforce. Coming up tomorrow, the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health. Until then, all of you have a safe and wonderful day.
That concludes another episode of the America's Workforce Radio Podcast. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. America's Workforce is a production of Labor Tools and BMA Media Group. Find out more information online at labortools.com.